Hi, I'm Janet Sutherland. I am a brain aneurysm survivor. I suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm on March 22nd, 2004. I was walking my dog and had the worst headache on the planet. At least that's what I told the 911 operator. Um, I suffered this horrible headache. I guess I called it the worst headache on the planet. And the operator, the paramedics took me to the hospital, and the doctor told my parents that I had 3% chance of living. So I ended up just being in a coma. From the moment they took me to the hospital, I was unconscious, and I was continually in a coma from that moment on. I never saw my family or friends. I was completely unconscious for 3 weeks. It was interesting because I never saw a person, but I did hear people. I heard someone saying, everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be okay. It was my father who was saying, everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be okay. He repeatedly said that to me. And my father actually sat at my bedside and he would read my favorite children's books, which was Babar and Curious George. Apparently, someone told him to do that. I guess that was to calm me down and keep me from being anxious. But he kept saying everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be okay. The interesting thing about that was that I remember it. I remember my comas, and I remember battling fights and that kind of a thing. But something triggered me from being calm and knowing I was going to be okay. And I often wonder if what my father was telling me, everything's going to be all right, everything is going to be okay, calmed me and helped me fight the fight and fight for my life. I don't know. That's just my theory. But my message there is that we can hear you when we're unconscious. I'll tell you what, my mom kept saying, she looks kind of fat, she looks kind of puffy, so be careful what you say when we're unconscious because I think it's more effective when you're positive and you're uplifting when we're unconscious. That would help because I was fighting for my life a lot. And if it weren't for my father saying everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be all right, that really helped a lot in reading my favorite children's books. That really helped. And I do remember those she looks fat comments afterwards. I did kind of remind my mom after I woke up those comments too. So we do hear you, and I would encourage people who are with their loved ones that are unconscious to keep it positive and keep it uplifting and encourage people when they're fighting their battle of their life. That's very important when you're unconscious. That's one message that I would say. But also, someone told my parents to start moving my arms and my legs. I don't know who it was, but they started moving my left arm and my left leg. And I think that was sort of a way to build up the brain path. So, because I had such a massive bleed, I'm wondering if that was something that a doctor or a nurse or a physical therapist told my parents, but they continue to do that. They continue to move my left arm and left leg the entire time I was unconscious. But I can tell you that when I was in physical therapy, it was a lot easier to start working my left arm. So I would say that that was helpful. Starting to build the brain path was very important, and repeating any kind of movement on the weak side was super helpful. So that was another thing. So number one, when you're unconscious and you're in a coma, send positive messages and make sure that you continue to say everything's going to be okay, and remember that people can hear you, so be positive there. So when you get into physical therapy, I would encourage you to listen to your physical therapist, and I would encourage medical professionals to make sure you educate the family members and friends or anyone around them so that they can learn all about building the brain path. Now, when I'm sure the medical professionals will explain the brain path, I had a massive bleed and my brain path on my left side was wiped out during the bleed. So it had to be built back, and I had to retrain my brain and my movement on my left arm and my left leg and my stomach muscles. My arm would fall out of my bed and my leg would fall out of my bed, and So I had to kind of repeat and do everything and make sure that my arm would move regularly. And my mom would make me use the salt shaker and continue to use the salt shaker and also use my arm out of the dryer. And I would do that as well. So, and that would also strengthen my core muscles. So it wasn't until my father started working my leg that I was using a walker that I continued to work my walker. And when I was working my walker one day, and I noticed that my left leg started to work on its own after working my leg. So we took the walker away and started to build a brain pattern on our own. So at that point, we decided, let's try and see if I can walk on my own. We've been building the brain pattern, repeating, and I ended up putting my walker away and using my cane. So educating the family, repeating the motions, and making sure that you talk positively to people in the coma. Those are the messages that I would like to send to everyone, and don't lose hope. All this information can be available too in a book that I wrote called Nose Over Toes. My dad kept a great journal, and it teaches the lessons of how to recover from a brain aneurysm. So that's my story, and I wish everyone luck, and you will survive. And these are just little tidbits on how to survive a coma and recover through rehabilitation. Thank you.